Okay, we'll start in just a few minutes. We just sent out the mail, so we'll wait for the final people to come in. Okay, I see that people are getting the mail. So I think we can get started. I'll just open the final windows. So good evening, everyone. It's December already, a month for celebration, a month with a lot of new releases like PHP 8. Well, a couple of months ago, Composer 2 was released. Lots of new stuff and, well, lots of fun to do during the lockdown and during the holiday times. Tonight, we'll have a schedule. We're starting a bit later, but I will keep the housekeeping notes short so we don't run out of time too much. Our first talk will be by Freek van de Herten. He will talk about behind the scenes of Oh Dear. Once Freek is finished around 8ish, we'll have a 15-minute break. And then we'll get a little bit more interactive with Jordi. He's talking about Composer 2, but it's an Ask Me Anything session, which means that he wants to interact with you. We'll discuss that later when his talk is going to start. And at the end, there will be some game time with prizes. Usually we had the Wheel of Fortune. This time we're going to try something different. And well, we're really going to require you to keep attention during the prize raffles. Of course, this meeting wouldn't have been possible without our great sponsors. We'd like to thank Mark Baker, who is a community member, I think since day one. And he's also giving out a generous gift during the raffle to elephants. Then we have Oh Dear. Oh Dear is one of the best monitoring as a service solutions that provide uptime, cron, certificate, and broken link monitoring. for every web application at a very reasonable price. It's built with PHP and it's also by the community and for the community. Our next sponsor is Spatie. Spatie, probably known as the Laravel Package Factory. They have also created a full training course for building modern web applications with PHP 8 called Frontline PHP. I can recommend to check that one out. But at the end, we're also giving away 3 coupons for this training. And last but not least, we also have Michelangelo, our main sponsor for almost every event we do. And he is part of Into IT, and it is our longtime supporter for paying the bills and taking care of raffle prizes and sending them around the world. But now, let's not keep the housekeeping long. Let's give the word to Freek van der Herten. We will be switching, and then we will be starting the session behind the scenes of Oh Dear. So.
I think we're on. Nice.
Yes.
I'm going to assume that everybody hears me fine. Otherwise, I'll sure somebody will tell me. I'm currently finding out how I should share my screen. Screen sharing, the entire screen, share. Okay, you should see my screen now. Let's go to the presentation. Where is it? Keynote. And let's play. So, thanks for coming to the meetup. It has been a strange year indeed. We're almost at the end of it. I'm very proud to do this presentation before the PHPBenelux user group. Normally, in normal years, I'm looking forward to the conference that will happen in January each year. But yeah, next year will be a little bit different. And I was very happy that Michelangelo asked me to give a talk, because he wants to have like a positive talk to end the year with. And the story of Oh Dear is a very positive and happy one. So I'm glad to share it all with you. So in this talk, I'll be giving a tour behind the scenes of Oh Dear. We'll be taking a look at some pieces of the code, but most of the things that I'm going to say are more about of the human side of the service. And an alternative title for this talk could be how to start and grow your own side project. So I want to share like the challenges we had in building Oh Dear, and yeah, general tips on how to start your own side project. For those that don't know me, I'm Freek van der Herten. I'm a partner and a developer at a company called Spatie. Like many of you, I'm also active on Twitter. My handle is Freek Meurten. And I also have a blog, freek.dev, where I talk about modern PHP development. Now, before heading into Oh Dear itself, I want to say a few words about the open source efforts that my company Spatie is making. We currently have about, I think, over 200 packages that we released. They are mostly for Laravel, but a good chunk of them are framework agnostic ones as well. And they have been downloaded now for over 100 million times, which for a small team at Spatie is quite nice. Yeah, whenever we see like a problem that we can solve and where other developers can benefit from, we just package up our solution and share it with the community. And this has become such a big habit that the overhead of doing this is almost zero for us. So we try keep doing that. I think in the past 12 months, we released, I think 30 or 40 packages, something like that. So if you're in a position to encourage open source development at your company, I highly encourage you to do so. Now, our packages aren't entirely free. There's like a special license on them called postcardware, which means that if you use one of our packages in your production environment, you are required to send us a postcard. And this makes me very happy because we get postcards from all over the world. At our office, we have a big magnetic wall, where all those postcards can be seen. And we share those postcards also with everybody on our website. So if you go to spatie.be open source postcards, then you see our virtual postcard wall. Now, about this talk itself, we're going to switch gears, not talk about Spatie, but we're going to talk about Odir. But I want to say first that this is not a sales talk. I'm not here to sell you anything. I just want to share the things that I've learned, so you can build your own side project as well. But in order to talk about Odir, you need to know what it is. So I will start with like a small product demo, so you know what we're talking about. Then we'll dive into the why and how we built this service. Then we'll take a code dive, so you'll see a technical look behind the scenes. And if there is time, I'm willing to answer any questions that you might have. Also, note to the organizers, if there are questions coming in the chat that should be answered, just interrupt me. I'm happy to give more explanations to the things that I'm saying if people have questions about it. So this can be interactive a bit as well if there are questions. Now, let's take a look at what Odir is. What is the beast that we have built? Well, Odir is an uptime monitoring service, but instead of just monitoring the homepage, we monitor the entire website. So that was the core idea where we started with. There are like a lot of uptime monitoring services, but none of them check like if you have a broken link or if there is a piece of mixed content on your site. And that was like the main idea, like, hey, we can provide that because we need this ourselves. But I'm going to talk about the why and how later. Let's log into Odir first. And I've already created a little demo. So Odir is multi-team aware, and I've already created a team here where I've just put in one site. And here you can see everything that we monitor. So we monitor the performance of a site. So this is the response time. We monitor the uptime. We monitor the SSL certificate. We monitor the content. So this is the broken links and the mixed content checked. And we also monitor cron jobs. And we'll dive into each of them later. Now, to make it a little bit more exciting, I'm going to add a site here so you can see what happens. And we are going to crawl the PHPBenelux Conference site. And we are going to take a look if there are any broken links there. So I'm going to add site. And you can see here that, we already do a performance check. It is up, the certificate is okay. We fetched the little favicon, that's a nice little detail. And the content check is pending. It takes a little bit before the crawl actually starts because there are a lot of crawl jobs running the whole time. But I hope that by the end of my presentation, we'll have a crawl run in here. Now let's take a look at some of these checks. So the uptime check is a very simple one. We just want to see if the site is up, and we monitor that from multiple locations. You can define a primary location where a site is monitored from, and this is monitored from Paris, France. But if Paris, France says, hey, this site is down, then we actually have uptime checker servers around the globe who will also do a second check. So we don't give any false positives around this. We'll dive into the code of that a little bit later. We also have the performance monitoring. So if we check the site, we do that with the curl call, and curl also sends a lot of statistics back, and yeah, we store those statistics in the database so we can render a graph of that, and we have a little bit of an explanation what all the colors mean there. We also do a certificate check. You can see here that there are a lot of things that can be checked. And one of the things that we will actually also check is if the certificate is valid long enough. Some of the other services, they will send you a notification when your certificate has expired. We actually check the date of the certificate and send you a notification well ahead of time. In most cases, 14 days, so you have some time to solve the issue. And of course, we also have the content check here. Here you can see that we crawl the entire site. So the Spatie site has 1,000 URLs here. And you can see that there were a few broken links here. I saw this today, but I didn't fix it yet, so I could see. So you could see these results. But after this talk, I'm going to fix these broken links. Let's take a look. There are no cron jobs defined here, but we'll take a look at another site. But see, the PHPBenelux site has been crawled, and there are no broken links. So we crawled all these pages, and no broken links were found. So kudos to the team that built that website. Now that is what we check. Let's take a look at what happens. Yeah, when a site is down, for instance. Well, there are several ways of which we can notify you. We can send you a mail, and you can see that we can send mails to an email address for various different events. So when the site is down, and then it's recovered, mixed content found, fixed, and so on. We can also send notifications via Slack, and these are interactive kind of notifications. So when we say like your site is down, that notification will have like a little menu, like mute this notification for a couple of hours or even a days, for when like there's a site down that isn't really important and it's weak, and then you don't want to be notified the whole time. Then you can mute that notification right in Slack itself. We're developers, so we like to integrate things. So we also have first-class support for webhooks. So whenever we send you a notification, we can ping your server, and you on your server can decide what to do with that notification. But we also have some favorites like SMS here. A lot of people like Discord for notifications as well. I was a little bit surprised for that. There's also pushover and HipChat. That's, I think, that service was a little bit popular, but I think they're shutting down now. So let's see. Are there other things that I must show you? Maybe the cron check. I'm going to my other team here. And I'm going to one of my own sites where I know that we use these scheduled tasks. So these scheduled tasks, these are the kind of the inverse of an uptime check. So with a normal uptime check, we ping your site, and if that ping doesn't give us a response, then we say, hey, your site is down. With scheduled tasks, that has been turned around. With the scheduled tasks, we expect your server to ping us. And if you don't ping us, then we say, hey, your scheduled tasks isn't running. So we have a very easy way of adding like ping hooks into your application, and probably you will add this in the scheduled jobs. And for this particular application, we have quite a few scheduled jobs. Let's take a look at one of them, clean models. And here you can see the moments where we have got a ping, what the duration of that job was, what the memory used was. And we can also see that on the third, the second, and the first of the month, there was a problem. So this is good because if this check is okay, then you know that all your scheduled tasks are running on time, because you have no other way of seeing that. Because if you use like an exception system like Flare or Bugsnag, and your scheduled tasks isn't running, Bugsnag will never notify you of that, because there isn't an exception going on there. So that's why this check is important. So even though I think that Odir is a simple application, there is actually a lot going on, I think, to achieve all of this behavior. Now, let's go back to the presentation. I think I've shown everything that I wanted to show here. Yeah. And let's go back full screen. So let's take a look at the history of Odir and a few key figures. So Odir, it has launched in February of 2018, so it is a relatively young service. But even though we're relatively young, there's already more than 1 billion checks performed. And I should actually change this, because this is this is old data, and we actually performed more than 3 billion checks as of this morning. I think we have that on our home screen somewhere. Yeah, we've run about 3 billion checks, and we send out 1 million notifications. So this number proves to me that a service like Odir is really needed, because there are a lot of things that site owners need to be notified about. Let's go back to the presentation. We are very lucky to have amassed over 1,000 paying users now, and the current monthly recurring revenue is at 15K, and the service is also growing quite a lot. So we have a growth of 10% a month for the past 12 months now. So Odir is doing pretty great. Some people have asked where the name Odir comes from. Well, the first meetings that we had about creating a service like this one, they were held in a place where many good ideas come to fruition, and that is in a bar. So I've not created this service alone. I've created this service together with my buddy Matthias Geniaar. And Matthias actually contacted me like, Freek, you have all these open source tools. Let's build like a SaaS thing together. You have like the PHP knowledge. I have the operational knowledge. Together we can do something nice. And we were sitting in a bar, and I was immediately convinced, yeah, I want to do this, because what do we have to lose? Because it's a side project, you know. With Spatie at the time, we were doing a lot of client work, and there wasn't really room for creating a software as a service application. So I thought, let's do it in our own time. And in that bar, we immediately decided we need to have a name, because it might be it might sound a little bit silly to you, but I'm much more motivated if something is already named well and or as a good code name. And so we were looking around in the bar, and this was a bar where there are like advertisements of other beers on the wall. And one of the beers was this one, Moeder Overste. It's like I think in English, the head nun or something like that. And we were saying like, what would she say if like her website was down? And we thought, yeah, she would probably say, oh dear. And it was a little bit meant of a joke, but yeah, we stick with it even after lunch. And that is the history of the name Oh dear. So why have we created Oh dear? Because other tools, they either do too much, looking at you, ping them. They can be confusing, again, ping them. They can be very ugly. That is a little bit hand in hand with the first two. And they can be very expensive too. Now, Oh dear tries to solve these problems. And I think there's a slide in the wrong order. It should be this one. So Oh dear, it aims to be very beautiful and easy to use with almost no feature bloat. We want to keep things very simple. We don't have like a strange price structure where you need to pay more to have certain features. No, everybody gets like the same features. There's only one limiting factor, the amount of sites that we monitor, but it's very simple. It's also built with companies like Spatie in mind. So having like a web company of my own, which I see as like the ideal customer that we need to serve, helps a lot. So my first tip, if you want to start your side project, would be like choose something that you want to use yourself, because you already know the problem very well, and you likely also have a good idea on what a good solution is and what the problem is with the existing solutions. If you are trying to create a side project where there is where you don't know the business well, yeah, you're not going to be as passionate about it, because you just don't know what a good solution or what a good solution is, and what you're solving, if that is even a good problem to solve. So try to see, yeah, what am I missing? What is missing with the current solutions, and can I make that better? Now, there are a lot of competitors out there, and especially for uptime services. Monitoring a website isn't really a fresh idea, but that doesn't really matter, because everybody solves this problem a little bit in a different way. And yeah, we like very much that there's like open space in the design and that it looks beautiful. But for other people, they just want to have like as much detail as possible and as much information as possible. And that means that you can solve a problem in different ways, and that there will probably be an audience for you that also wants the solution that you have in mind. So my tip here is focus on what your audience finds important. Now, how did we build Oh dear? Well, we had no planning. There was no budget. There was no roadmap, and we also had no clients. This was like a 100% side project, and for me personally, that was very, very refreshing. As much as I like working at Spatie, there is always like a pressure of you're selling your time, so you need to be at your utmost best and deliver things with the time that clients have bought. And with Odir, it's nice that there is like this entire open space, open sea of time where you can work with. If there's something that doesn't work out right, it's no problem because there's no budget and there's nobody complaining. And even in the beginning, where we didn't know the exact features, it doesn't really matter. We're doing this for ourselves. There's nobody saying this. I think that just having no boundaries can be a little bit refreshing. Of course, after a while, you should have boundaries because you need to have like a goal. But I think one of the appeals of having like a side project is the freedom that you have in how you're going to execute it. Now, we didn't start from scratch. I already created a lot of things in the open source space. So I've already built a crawler package. I've also built a package that can send notifications when a site is down. I've also built an SSL certificate package where you can load up an SSL certificate and get some details from that. So that was like the starting point, that open source thing. And that is why Matthias contacted me because he saw, with these open source tools, you can do something. And we started building after that meeting. So we started building in September 2017. And even though Odir itself is not open source, we talked a lot about it on the social networks, in particular Twitter, about the things that we wanted to put in the service. We talked about actual pieces of code and problems that we had. And I think this helped very much in building an audience for this service, because we already shared our vision. We got feedback from the audience that we already had on Twitter. So my tip, if you want to have if you have a side project of your own, do it in the open. Don't make it a secret. Talk about it as much as you can, so you can see if there is like an interest in that. And if there is an interest, then people will actually share with you very good ideas that you can execute. Now, the first working version of Odir was in November, so we had like 2 months of crunching on this. And this was all being done in the evening. I don't know how we did it, because I can't work at that pace now. But for some reason, because of the high motivation, we delivered the base version in November. And we tested out our service with sites from my own company and from Combel, which is a big hosting provider in Europe. And Combel was where my buddy Matthias was working. So we already had like a lot of sites, and we could see a lot of edge cases because we had like a big variety of tests going on there. Now, we also invited some close friends to give us some feedback. That's also a thing that I encourage you to do. I think it's good to have like a few close inner dev friends where you can just share your worries with the service with, where you can like ask for feedback. And those close friends, they helped a lot as well in shaping the service. We launched Odir in beta in February 2018. We also started with a mailing list. I think it was in September or something like that. And we saw that about 10 or 15% of the mailing list converted to a customer. So if you're starting with a side project, maybe it's a good idea to have a mailing list as well. so that the people that are interested in your product along the way, that you have a way to reach them when you launch the project. Also, don't be afraid to launch. I think our launch was one of the most unplanned ones in the history of website launches. So we already had like a working version in November, and we were then in February of the next year. And I think Matthias or I said, let's just launch it tonight. It wasn't planned at all, but it was like, hey, it's been running stable for a few months. Let's just do it now. And it was like in the heat of a moment thing, nothing planned. It's just like, do you have some time tonight? Okay, let's just launch it. Sent out the mails. And yeah, it was an exciting evening. But in hindsight, I think that we launched a little bit too late because it was already very, very stable. That beta label, it has been removed now. But like some other services, the beta label sticked on for quite some time, because if there were serious problems, we could still say, hey, it's beta. But luckily, we didn't have any big problems. So I've already said this. I think it's a good idea to build in the open, so you can build an audience for that. And like I've also said, the idea really mustn't be original. Even if you have something in your mind that you want to build that others have already built, don't let that bring you down. I think people that say you shouldn't reinvent the wheel, they are wrong, because the wheel has been reinvented so many times, and the wheel has gotten much, much better than the wheel that we had in the old ages. I think you also shouldn't be afraid to just build in the open, because even if somebody steals your idea, he or she will execute it in another way. And Odir is like a perfect example of that. There are like hundreds of different services like ours, but none of them have executed their solution like we do. And I think that the execution is more important than the idea itself. Because an idea, you can copy an idea, but execution, that can't really be copied. Or you're or you're a total dickhead if you just copy the everything, but that generally doesn't happen. So how did Matthias and I work? We divided the workload. So Matthias had a lot of SSL knowledge, and he also did quite some customer support, so he was good at that. And I do mainly coding, so we split it a little bit up in that. So I think Matthias, he explained to me how like the certificates work and what like the pitfalls are if you want to want to code up a service like this one. And I try to create beautiful code for that. We also used a product called Laravel Spark. And Laravel Spark is like a template for a Laravel application where there's already billing provided and team multi-team support provided, invoice generation and that. So all of these general SaaS kind of things, they were solved by Spark, so we could concentrate on the actual things that made our service, like the uptime checking and stuff. Now, both Matthias and I, we were we really suck at design, so we outsourced that to my own company. And I think my tip here is that you really shouldn't go alone in building like a side project. I think it's good to team up with somebody so that you're in an adventure together, because you'll probably like need feedback and motivational support by somebody, and that is yeah just so much nicer to do with two persons. Like if you work in tandem in the evening and you have like a Slack channel and you're chatting a little bit, and you can show another person, hey, I've built this, what do you think of that? That is just much more fun to do with others than if you're trying to create something alone. Maybe it's a little bit of my personality type. I like to work with people, and that's why I give this tip to just team up with someone or a group of people to do this. Now, what do we do for marketing? Well, we tried all the traditional things first, like buying ads and on buying text ads and buying ads on podcasts and stuff. And I don't know if this is a general rule, but for us that didn't work at all. It's just very hard with a piece of text or with an ad to attract people that are enthusiastic about the service. So we try to do it another way. Instead of paying other people to show an ad for us, we try to just share our knowledge with people that might be interested in it. So I think one of the best things that we did for marketing was starting a blog on our own site where we talked about, hey, these are the problems that you'll encounter when you try to check a certificate, or this is how this particular piece of our application is built up. And people are interested in that because we're programmers, right? And we try to learn, and we want to see how other people are doing it so we can make better things. So with like blogging about a real world application, you attract an audience that might also be interested in the product that you're building. So content blogging is a big one. So yeah, that's a thread that's that's been going on in this talk. Do it in the open, share as much as possible. I think that is a very important step. Discount codes is also a very important one. Humans are just humans. Humans like to make like little deals. Like I get a little bit of discount on this. Okay, I'm going to do it. Sometimes it's as simple as that, and we see that if we have a discount going on and we tweet about that people are that there's like a big influx of new users. It's kind of strange, I think, and kind of amazing that something like Black Friday and Cyber Monday that works, because there's nothing changed about the service or about the product. You just get it a little bit cheaper, and in much cases, just a tiny little bit cheaper. But that can drive so many people over the edge. So I think if you want to grow your side project, discount codes are certainly something that you want to do. Now, these 2 points, code snippets and doing talks, that is a little bit in the same team as content blogging. Just share what you know with your audience, and your audience might be interested in what you do. I think in the months that I've built Odir, I think I tweeted like a code snippet and like, this is how I solved it. I think 3 or 4 times a week, something like that. So my tip for you, if you want to build a service of your own, is provide value in your marketing. Don't do like my service is the best, because that doesn't work. Everybody knows it's an ad, and developers, if you're targeting a developer audience, we all know that developers don't like ads. So we probably have I think 90% of people that are hearing my voice now have ad blockers installed. So don't rely on that, but try to help people with your knowledge, and they might help you with subscribing to your service. Now, we also try to be a little bit quirky in our service as well, just to give a little bit of personality. So everybody that signs up to Oh Dear, we send them a postcard, and we get a lot of tweets back like this one, where people are really happy that they got a postcard from us. This has been a special year, so we've done something else than postcards this year. We also provide now these beautiful masks, and we have here a photo of Michelangelo wearing one of them. We might or might not raffle some of these away later this evening. Something that we also do is sending out a uptime report each month. And we also do that for the users that are in trial. And this is also something where we try to add value. Instead of, we could just mail our audience with like, hey, this is new at our blog, and have separate mails for that. But instead, we thought, hey, we're already mailing everybody monthly with like uptime statistics. Let's just add the new blog post on there as well, so the mail becomes even more valuable, and we don't have to send too much mails to our audience. Now, let's talk a little bit about the tools that we used and the hardware that is being used to run the service. So we have a main web server that is hosted at Combel, and it's like a big machine because it needs to do all these crawling jobs and all these checks. Last time I checked, there were about, I think, I don't know by heart, but it's really a 1,000 jobs and thousands of checks per minute that we need to do. So it's a beefy server. Those uptime checks, they are not being performed from that main web server, but we actually have little DigitalOcean and Vultr servers provisioned around the world. We call them uptime satellites. And the main service sends a request to the uptime satellite. The uptime satellite does a request to the site that needs to be monitored, and the uptime satellite sends the response back to the main web server. That's how that works. There's also a thing not on this slide yet, that in regards to the cron monitoring. The cron monitoring, so those are like the scheduled jobs that are pinging our servers. They are actually pinging a Lambda at AWS, and that Lambda, it will throttle all those incoming requests and send like a summary of them to the main app. So I should probably do say AWS also on this slide. We use Flare for exception monitoring, which is a service that Spatie built. We also use Freshdesk. We use GitHub for source control and issue management. And these are all like boring technology things. And of course, everything is written in PHP. And I think that's also a nice thing if you do like a side project that you want to grow. Just use the services that you know and love, so you can just concentrate on the problem that you want to solve. Let's see what we have next. We have the code dive, but let me check for time. Still have 10 minutes. So yeah, let's do a little bit of a code dive. So here in PHP Storm, this is the actual code base of Oh Dear. And it will surprise no one that this is a Laravel application. And let's see. Our application is split into different kind of domains, which is different from a standard Laravel application. And if I remember correctly, then we have a branch no domain here. And this is how the application looked like, I think, 2 years ago. We didn't have that domain thing here. And this looks more like a default Laravel application. So where all the models are just in one directory, where all the events are just in one directory, and so on. Now the problem with a structure like this one is that you don't see the coherence between some of these files. So those models, you don't know where they interact with. It's just, I wouldn't call it a big mess, because it works as well. But if an application grows, then like a structure like this can be a little bit hard to follow sometimes. And this is not the main point of the talk, but I don't have the time to explain it into detail. But one of the ways that you can just combat that complexity is by adopting a domain oriented structure, where you take a look at what are like the big concepts in your application, and everything around that concept, just group that and treat that as like a separate kind of application inside of your application. So we have a blog domain here. I've already said that we have a blog on our website, and everything that drives the blog is here. This is a very small domain, like you see. There's only like a post model and something to render some HTML with. But I think it's you know now by this structure that the post model is used by the blog. And it doesn't, if I want to work on the blog, that I know I can work in this domain. And I don't need to go into those directories where there are many, many files. Now, the blog domain is a very small domain, but let's take a look at a little bit of a more sizable one. You can see here that everything around checks is a little bit bigger. Let's maybe open up another one. The status page domain. I forgot to say that Odile also has support for rendering status pages like this one, statuslaravel.com. Even though it's on the Laravel domain, this page is hosted on Odile. And the Laravel organization, all their sites are monitored by us as well. And if we detect that it's down, then it will be seen on our status page as well. Let's go back. So all the code to drive that page is here. Let's see how we are on time. Maybe show one thing more here. Let's maybe check out the uptime checker itself. So we have different checkers here. And this is where like the core logic of these checks live. And it's actually not that hard to follow. If we take a look at the uptime checker class, which is like the beating heart of the uptime check, you can see that there isn't too much code involved here. So let's maybe walk through it. So a checker, it gets a run. A run is basically like a model in our database that represents an instance of a check that we need to do. We have an uptime check. We need to run it every 5 minutes or every 2 minutes now. That thing that we do every 2 minutes, that is called a run. What are we going to do? We are going to get a checker service. So we have multiple checker satellites, I've called them earlier. And we want to find them for a certain city. And we want the one that the user has specified. So in the previous example that I showed you, that was Paris. And we are going to ask that checker service, hey, check it for us. If the checker server responded with a result, then we are going to save it. And also, if it is a positive result, then we are going to handle the success. That means that if the site was down and it is now up, then we are going to send the notifications, and then we are done with it. But if there was no checker result here, then we are going to find another server. So we are going to find an alternative for the city, and we're also going to find a checker for another provider. So if you use the DigitalOcean server, then now we're going to use a Vultr server. So if DigitalOcean is completely down, then we know then we are going to use the other service to do the uptime check. And here we are going to do more or less the same thing. We are going to ask that server, hey, check the site for this run. If there was a result, we are going to save it. If the site is up, we are going to mark it as up. But if for the second, if the second server also said that the site is down, then we are going to run this mark as failed. We are going to send out an event, and this event will cause a notification to be sent. There's a little bit more to it, but that's basically the gist of it. Now, if both of our servers didn't respond, so if checker result was false here, checker result was false here, then we are going to outright delete that run and pretend it never happened. Now, why do we do this? We think that the chance is very low that both of our checkers do not respond. Then we probably did something wrong ourselves, and we don't want to send notifications to our users then, because if we did something wrong ourselves and we send notifications, false positives to everybody, that will obviously be very, very, very bad. So that's why we have this line in. We also monitor our own uptime checker service, so we probably also we will get a notification via another way that there is something very wrong. This has never happened before, but this gives me peace of mind that if there's something very wrong with our infrastructure, that we don't start sending false notifications to everybody. I want to share a few things more, but we're a little bit short on time, so I'm going back to the keynote. So let's close a little bit off. If you want to know more about like the checks that we perform, how we perform them, we've added a big description for everything in our documentation. We're developers. We all value documentation, so we also for ODIHR we emphasized a lot on the quality of the documentation. So if you want to know anything more, just go to odih.app/docs. We have a lot of integrations going on. There's an API, so you can start monitoring stuff via your application as well. You have an SDK. Like I've said, there are webhooks, there's CLI. If you use Laravel Nova, there's a tool for that. There's also integration for Statamic and Craft CMS. Both Matthias and I are developers, so we want to give developers like the best experience of interacting with our service. We have a few plans for the future, so we are working on these things now. Monthly reports. We currently send like a notification to if like we found like a broken link or if your website is down. But a lot of our clients are web companies like Spatie, and they want to give like a monthly report, like this is how to, they want to give like a monthly report to their clients with like, this is how your site was doing this month. So we're going to add that to ODIHR. For each site, we are going to generate reports that give like a global vision of everything that went wrong and went well at the site. So web companies can mail that to their clients. We're also planning an overhaul of the UI of the app. The application, it is simple, but we think we can make it even better. I said that content marketing was important, so I'm going to give you these links. I'll tweet out the link to these slides later, so you don't have to write this down right now. These are technical deep dives that I've written on my blog about Odir. So we really go into the details of the code in these blog posts. Of course, we also have a blog at Odir itself. And my buddy Matthias, he also often talks about like the human side of the service. And this one is a very nice one on his blog. He did like a investigation of how users are finding Odir, and it might contain tips for building your audience as well. And I've also mentioned that I've tweeted out a lot of coding tips while I was building Odir. Well, they are all in this Twitter moment. So if you visit this URL, you can see all those code-related tweets. I said that this wasn't a sales talk, but we're going into the sales a little bit here. If you want to try out the service, there's a free trial for 10 days. And with this coupon code, you get a 30% off for your first 3 months. It was also mentioned that I've written a book together with my team on building modern applications with PHP 8. It's called frontlinephp.com. It's a close look at the modern PHP features, tips to build quality applications. We go into the advanced features. There's a free chapter being published here, and I also want to share this, a coupon where you can get the book and the video course with a nice discount. Like I've said, I'll just tweet out a link to these slides in a bit. So that is what I wanted to say. I hope that you liked it, and I hope this can help with building your site project as well. So thank you for listening all.
Thank you, Freek. That was amazing.
There you go.
We did get some questions, but you were on such a good roll. So let's see if we can pull them up.
Okay.
I am trying to find them. Jelmer is asking, is there a way to reset the signing secret? No, right now not. So that signing secret, I think he refers to the signing secret on the webhook. So we sign all the webhooks that we sent out, and to validate if we sent out that actual webhook, we include the secret there. Right now, it can't be reset. Just mail me, and I'll do it for you. And I'll keep a note in my head that I need to put a button there that people can reset that secret on their own. Okay. Next question is your Lambda script written in PHP as well?
Yes, it is written in PHP. We use a service called Laravel Vapor, and that service, it actually makes it very simple to deploy a Laravel project up onto Lambda. Your application doesn't need to know anything that it runs on a Lambda. Vapor does everything for you. I mentioned Vapor here, it's Laravel specific, but there's also a framework agnostic one by Matthieu Napoli. The name escapes me now, but it's actually quite easy nowadays to run PHP on Lambda.
Okay, cool. You were also talking about sending out a mailing list when you launch the application. But how would you build up that mailing list if you don't have a known company like Spatie behind you? Asked by Jelmer.
I think it certainly helped for me that Spatie had already an audience, because we did a lot of the things in the open source space. And I think that when you it's much easier to try to build an audience if you're not selling anything, because people will approach you in another way if you're trying to sell anything. So I think before you start your side project, it might be good to already start sharing the things that you work on or that interest you, so you can build up your audience even before you have your idea, and then it will be much easier to start a mailing list and to attract some people, because you've already have some fans. So I, d- I don't know if I can give like more practical tips on that, but yeah, it's like the thread that's going through my talk. Just share what you do with the people, and people will find you if you just, I think, tweet something interesting once a week. That might already be enough to build an audience, so you can start your mailing list and start your service or your side project.
Okay, those are very valuable tips. Rashendi is asking if there is any integration with Mattermost, which is an open source alternative to Slack.
Right now, there is not, because not many of our customers are asking for it, and we need to pick our battles, because I'm the main one coding. Matthias helps a lot out nowadays as well, but we have to focus on things that are actually asked by our audience. Now, Mattermost isn't the only service that people could ask for, because there are a lot of chat applications, and that's why we have like the webhooks. So with the webhooks, you can do anything that you want. We'll send you a notification to your server, and if your server wants to transmit that to Mattermost, you can do it on your own. Now, I know that isn't ideal, but we can't just write it for. I write notifications for any notification platform in the world. So my answer would be use the webhooks for now for this.
Okay. Then we have time for one more question, and that is by Carlos. What database engine do you use to store all the reporting information?
We use plain old MySQL for this. Like I've said, it's. I think it's safe to use like the boring tools that you already know and love, and so we just use a simple MySQL. I think version 8. So nothing special there. It just can handle that.
Okay, cool. So that's all we have time for now. I think it is time to go for a break. I'd like to thank you very much, Freek. We've learned a whole lot about
My pleasure.
what Odeer is, how it works, and how it has been set up. So that's absolutely great to see. Thank you, Freek.
Thanks.
And go back to the sheets. Mm. So we'll be having a short break now. And we will be back in 15 minutes, which is 2025. So time for you all to grab a drink, enjoy some time, and we'll be back later. Thank you.
Okay.
At some point, look, he didn't want to do it, so I said, fine, we'll just fork the package, and now we just recommend using the fork if we detect that you have a dependency issue because of that package. We just suggest in the error output that you should use the fork, and that solves it. So
Okay.
it's just not fun. Like, it's just been a gigantic waste of time on all sides, I think.
Mhm.
While just merging it would have been, sure, he would have lost his argument maybe, but also we would have all moved on, and I don't know.
Okay, no, sorry for you. I mean, thanks.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sure.
Next up is Mark Baker. So let's find Mark. Okay. If you want, you can turn on your microphone and camera, Mark.
Hello, Mark.
And Wise will do it in QA mode.
Well, otherwise I can read it, I guess. So the question is, are there any plans? Oh, no. You switched to another one?
That's the wrong one. I'll
Okay.
go back.
I can answer that while we wait for Mark. I don't know.
That was from the previous session.
Okay. I thought our documentation is not that great.
Mark wants to do it in text. Okay, that's fine.
Okay. So are there any plans to add a flag for CI install so that the download counts exclude them, providing a more accurate installation count? No. So we do have this information, like if there's like the CI environment variable, or I forgot which, but there are a few environment variables that we detect, and if we detect that, we send the CI flag as part of the user agent when sending requests. So we can actually identify those requests. And for example, like those PHP version stats I publish every 6 months. I don't know, you may have seen that. Otherwise, I can link it. For these, I do exclude like the CI versions, just because that adds a little bit of noise. Because like on CI, usually you test on a lot of versions that people don't necessarily use anymore a lot. But actually, looking at the data, it's fairly interesting, because if you include CI or exclude CI, like the numbers don't really change all that much. It's really, yeah, it seems fairly irrelevant. I know it's just a nitpick that like programmers like to have, because they think like they're not fully in control of the system the way it is, but it just doesn't matter, I think. In the end, it's and also like for the download count, yes, it is higher, but an installation count is anyway, it's an artificial number. Like what does it mean, an installation? If I deploy 10 times a day in a fresh container, let's say, then I have 10 times a day an install. But if I do it like using FTP to sync up my local files to the server, then I deploy 15 times, but I only have one install, maybe. Like it's just a relative number of like how much is something used compared to something else, maybe more or less. Like I think people read way too much into these numbers, and
Building up a test environment or a development environment also counts toward the installs.
Right. Like it's just if we start to split it, then I think there's just no limit to which amount we have to split it. It just doesn't. No, I don't think it's worth it. So it's something I don't want to look at. But yeah, that was the long answer for no.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Next question is, I think, by Michelangelo, who is logged in under our Meetup account. Michelangelo, do you want to do it live? Then you can. Yes.
Hey.
Hi there, Jordi. Great to have you on board. My question is more from an architectural point of view. What were your main challenges getting 2.0 ready? And what were your lessons learned? And what will you do different going to version 3.0?
I think the main challenge, I would say two things, which are mostly external factors. One is testing. Like, it's been super challenging to get people to actually test it. So we first, we had the dev version. I mean, we worked on this. I think the first commits were on the 2.0 branch were almost 2 years ago. So this has been a long process. And so earlier this year, we at some point we said, okay, we need to invest more time in this and really push it out. And so we started publishing more and more, hey, please test. But then nothing happened. And then I started releasing alpha releases, then RCs. I thought, if it's an RC, surely people will get the message, right? That it's a release candidate. It means it could go out anytime. Nope. Still very, very low numbers. I mean, we were I think under 1% of usage for V2 at that point. And then I just had to tag that as stable. And within hours of tagging it stable, obviously, because so many things install Composer automatically in CI and deployment stuff and whatever, within hours, I think we were at 15 or 20% of usage, which is great. But on the other hand, it's 15% of flipping a coin and let's hope it works, right? So that was a super stressful moment, just the release. I was really, really scared of the fallback, of the fallout there. But it actually, nothing much happened. Really on the day itself, I did it on a Saturday morning because I thought that way I have the whole weekend to fix stuff. With the open source community will be the test bed for this, basically. And then I have the whole weekend to fix stuff until Monday morning when people get to work and then get super mad because everything broke. So, and then most of the Saturday I had nothing to fix, actually. No issue report, nothing. I was okay. And then it just actually started trickling in weeks later. I would say in the 2-3 first weeks, we started getting more and more of these edge case things that we didn't pick up before in the early testing stages. So that's been challenging, but I think it's not really fixable. I don't know how I would do it differently. But I think ultimately it went pretty well. It was scary and stressful, but we got through it. The other big issue is plugins and the fact that they require PHP, they require Composer version 1 and then Composer V2 because we broke so much stuff internally. We tried to keep it very compatible on the user level, but internally we just went through it with an axe. So we had to bump the plugin API version to make sure that every plugin has to be reviewed and tested with V2 before it's allowed to be installed. And that means that every plugin has to be tested and updated and so on. And so that's just a nightmare. I think, I don't know the number lately, I haven't checked in a few weeks, but I think a couple of weeks ago I checked like the top 100 plugins by download count. I think about half of them support V2 and the other don't. So I mean, it might be that some of them are, you know, just not used anymore much. They might have like lots of downloads from before, but sorry. But yeah, it's just really difficult to get the entire ecosystem to move like when you want it to move, because people have lives as well. It just everything happens at its own pace. So what would we do differently for V3? There is probably delay V3 as long as we can, because yeah, I don't think we can get that done faster, and with time it's just gonna get to more plugins and more problem, right? So yeah, so that's actually one of the issues with the, if we drop older PHP versions, that's very nice, but we can only modernize the APIs internally so much, because if we start adding like type hints everywhere, that's gonna break potentially plugins as well. So we do have to be a little bit careful there. Sorry, I just had this massive cold for the last couple of days. I did get tested, so you're all safe.
Well, anyway, thank you for giving us V2.
Sure.
You, Niels, and all the contributors. As you mentioned, the reason why a lot of people didn't pick up on it, one is half of the systems are automated, so that's what you mentioned. The other half is, I'm just talking now for myself, but I expected to be stuck at home. I have all the time in the world to do things, and apparently that doesn't happen. I have a wall with all my to-dos right here. I barely get things off this board because, yeah, there's so much going on. And, I just want to say you and Niels and everyone has done a great job, and thank you for that.
Thanks. Yeah, that makes absolute sense. But everyone else is also busy. I'm well aware of that.
All right, bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Okay, our next question is from Nicholas. Let's see if he wants to join us with audio camera above. Nicholas tuning in yet. He was asking, are there any features from other package managers that you think would benefit Composer?
I'm not sure at this point, to be honest. I think we do regularly like take in new stuff. For example, like you might have seen lately this funding, like kind of funding prompt to kind of, you know, help promote like these GitHub sponsors and stuff like that. From all your dependencies, we have this composer fund command now. So this. And this, I do believe, came from NPM somehow. It kind of came from NPM via Symfony Flex, and like just people started using that, and then started asking for it. And so I think that's one of the big strengths of the PHP community overall, is that like it's lots of people from very different backgrounds, and using lots of different tech on the side as well. So usually you do have like a lot of cross-pollination, and you see it in the language as well. Like it just keeps adding new features that come from this language or that language. And it's kind of this big melting pot of random things, but it ends up working quite well, I think. I think for Composer it's been a bit like that as well, where people might see a feature they like somewhere else and they'll ask for it, and we can see about doing it. But right now I don't have anything in mind.
And for anyone who doesn't know, how can they request certain features? Best way to go.
Well, I guess GitHub is the place to be. So we have the these links. We have the Composer repository on the Composer organization, so it's pretty easy to find. You can submit issues there. I also enabled this new GitHub discussions yesterday. I'm not sure if it's going to be good for anything. It's kind of like a Stack Overflow built into GitHub, if you haven't seen that. I don't think nobody wrote something in it yet, so we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, you can feel free to request features there, or look at the existing features. There are a couple of milestones with lots of features in there. And I don't promise we'll get to them because time is limited, and these days I'm doing mostly bug fixing and updating stuff on packages.org, so that's just keeping me busy.
Oh.
But I'm sure we'll get back in feature mode at some point for 2.1. Will you keep supporting the new -1 and -2 flags on Composer setup indefinitely? In case you haven't seen those let you essentially pin the version you want to install, either using this Composer setup from the website, or also using the Composer self-update command. So the flag exists on all of these. I think it just lets you force the latest V1 or the latest V2 version. Most likely we will just keep this around because I know people are building it into scripts and so on, and we can never remove this. So yeah, I would say feel free to use it for scripts if needed. However, if you're using it to force V1, just keep in mind you should migrate at some point. I understand it's not always possible right now due to plugins and so on, but just try not to forget this and leave it there for years, because if it's part of deploy scripts and servers and so on, it's usually okay if you just run Composer install, because the log file format is compatible between V1 and V2. So if you use V2 locally and you install on V1, it most likely will work if you don't have a plugin that requires V2. But still, it's just eventually you're gonna run into problems there.
Okay. And Stefan comments, I'd like to be able to pin to V2 once we switched, to not get pushed to V3 in the weekend.
I see. Yes. Yeah. No, that's a valid use case, I guess. You can also pin to V2, absolutely. I know at some point, I don't know, 6 months ago or so, we changed the kind of the default branch to be V2. And that meant that everyone that was downloading just from getcomposer.org/composer.far, that just hard-coded this URL, which is the latest snapshot URL, and they just assumed it was latest stable or something. I don't know. I mean, the snapshots are usually pretty stable, but it is technically the latest snapshot. And then suddenly that switched to V2 snapshots, and that day we definitely had a few complaints. But yeah.
Okay. I have a question myself. Are there any features that you were planning on and that you will have to push forward to a V3 release?
Or to V3. I think most of these, I'm just looking on the side. Yeah, no, so I actually renamed we used to have a V3 milestone, but then as I realized more and more that like this was gonna be really tricky with the plugins, I actually renamed that to 2.2. So I think a lot of these are like cleanups we can do once we drop the old PHP versions. One of the most important problems there actually is that we are relying still on Symfony 2.8 components, because those are the only ones that still support PHP 5.3. And those are like old, like super, super old. So just by dropping PHP versions, we can update to like Symfony 4.4, I guess. And so we use a few components there internally, which will like give us, a lot of new features and fixes and stuff like that just didn't make it in 2.8. So that I'm very much looking forward to. But it's not really like major features, let's say. I think all the big stuff we really crammed it into V2 because we knew this was like it was all one chance. So.
Yeah, I can imagine that it's quite hard to keep support for older PHP versions like 5.3.
Yeah.
With new upcoming versions like 8.0, did you have any trouble with supporting that while keeping support for 5.3?
Actually, like the support in the code itself was very little problems. I think we had, like as far as I remember, we had one issue in the test suite, which was like due to sorting, because the PHP 8 like kind of made the sort order stable, which did change the order a little bit in some cases. So when you sort an array or something like that. And so, yeah, we had a test failing there, but actually, like functionality-wise, it was fine. It was just the assertion was not correct anymore. Otherwise, I think it just worked on PHP 8. The main problem, though, is running a test suite, like writing a test suite that can pass the same tests on PHP unit 4.5 to 9.5. That's kind of a pain. Like I had to do so many backports and like random hacks and stuff that's just really ugly. But that's only for the test suite. Like it's runtime code is actually, it's not that bad except for the PHP 5.3 hacks, like the array syntax and the big one that caused me really lots of pain on working on V2 was like the lambdas, like the fact that anonymous functions, you don't have access to $this inside the function. That came in 5.4. And that's just like when you write async code, you just have lots of these anonymous functions. And so we now have tons of like private functions which actually had to be marked as public, but with a @private tag. Just to make them callable like this. So
I can imagine that this is a nightmare now and then.
Yeah, it's just sad because you know this has been fixed in PHP like 10 years ago or something. It's just like, come on, do I really have to do this ugly hack? But yeah, kind of. So done. Moving on now. Hopefully soon we can clean this up. But
okay. We have a next question from Freek. I just pulled him in as a presenter. Freek, do you want to turn the camera and on?
There we go again.
Yes.
Hello.
Hey.
I'm back.
Hi, Jordi. Yeah, thanks for everything that you do for a composer. It really has changed, how I feel about PHP, and I guess that's true for a lot of people. I wonder a little bit about like the business side. I wonder how like private packages is doing, and if that helps keeping your work at for composers sustainable.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this really. So maybe just to quickly mention for those not aware, like we do have this private packages service, which is at packages.com. So packages.org being the open source kind of registry, and packages.com lets you host like private packages and mirrors of your open source stuff as well, and a few other features. So we started this, I guess, 3-4 years ago now. And yeah, at this point, it's actually quite sustainable, and that's been really great. Like it's really allowed us to invest a lot of time on. I mean, I'm doing exclusively open source stuff at this point.
Cool.
I haven't touched the private packages code in over a year, I guess. And so that's really nice. Like. It's really a good feeling to be able to do this in like mostly work hours, because it's just after 10 years of doing this, like I have enough evenings and weekends. It's just like not sustainable at some point.
And do you ever worry about like what if like composer or like the private packages like goes away and I have to do client work for that? Do you sometimes worry about that, or can you just keep that out?
I just don't think about this.
That's good.
I don't know. I'm just an optimist maybe in that regard, but I figure if it works now, I don't see it going away like instantly. You know, if I don't know if PHP slowly dies out or something, or I don't know what, like if some huge competition comes up or something like that, maybe we'll have problems down the line, and then but I think that's rather like a slow death than like tomorrow it's gone. So
yeah,
I think I'll have time to see it coming, and I'll worry then.
Cool. I think that you're in a great position, and you should definitely enjoy what you're doing. So thanks for answering the question.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see.
We still have some lined up.
Yes, Stefan Schamp also has another question.
Now that's the same again. Yeah.
It is. So, for those of us that missed your Super Symphony World talk, can you elaborate on why V1 is used so much more memory at times?
Mm-hmm. I can just pull out the slides, I guess, for that, because that's probably easier to show you. Do you see that?
Yes, you can see it.
So yeah. So one of the really big things was, I guess this slide is probably what you're referring to. It's really the issue that internally in V1 the representation of the dependencies and like the requires between different dependencies and the conflicts and so on is always represented as like one pair of so one, let's say one object. Really, that's what it is. It's like we have one PHP object for every combination. So If you see like the top example here, this, so you have like foobar requiring bash cooks. That will end up in like a few rules. The one with the minus there says that either foobar is not installed, or bash cooks 2 is installed, or bash cooks 201 is installed, or 210 is installed. So then that makes sense. Like either the dependency can be installed, or the one that depends on the dependency cannot be installed. That's essentially how you describe this in a kind of like lower level, more mathematical way. So this SAT solver is kind of this like algorithm behind it. Now, the issue is when you say I have this like foobar package that has 3 versions here, because PHP doesn't let you really install like multiple versions at the same time, like npm likes to do, for example. If you run an npm install, you might have 15 times the same package installed in different versions, because different things require it in different versions and so on. Which is great because they don't have to do a lot of this like conflict resolution. So their logic can be actually like a lot dumber than we have to do. Oh, backup complete. Thank you. Remember to run your backups, but not during talks. So yeah, I was saying, so in our case, we cannot have multiple times the same package installed in different versions. So that means for every combination of 2 package versions, we have to create a conflict rule saying here either 1.0 is not installed, or 1.1 is not installed, and 1.0 is not installed, and 1.2 is not installed, or that and that. So it's just like a combination of long combinations expressing the fact that only one of them can be installed at the same time. As you see, this can really grow like kind of exponentially. So that's the formula, but to visualize it a little bit more, if you have like 3 versions, you have 3 rules, like these 3. It's still pretty reasonable. With 6 versions, you already have 15 rules. 100, you have 5,000. And then if we take something like Symfony, which has about 500 versions, you end up with 120,000 rules for just one Symfony package. If you're using Flex and you load up like 40 Symfony components, most of them have these 500 versions. You can see how this quickly ends up to be like a gigantic amount of objects. Like you really very quickly reach into the millions of objects, and like considering this, I guess Composer 1 is fairly efficient. I mean, we already optimized to death like the amount of memory this stuff was using. But it's just at some point, like if you have millions of objects, there's a little amount of memory you pay for every object, and it's not sustainable. So in V2, no matter how many versions you have, it's always one rule object that just contains like pointers to all of the versions. And the logic internally had to be changed a little bit to account for that. But that does make it like a lot more efficient, clearly, especially as the number of version grows. Yeah, so I guess it's one of the big differences in terms of memory. The other thing was really like kind of getting rid of packages and just like sort of pre-filtering them. this was also like it's stuff that was really not possible in V1 due to the way it was architected, and that's one of those many things we learned with time, and we decided like, okay, we have to refactor this in a way that we can actually have this initial step where we collect all the packages, and then once we have all that, then we can look at that and optimize some of it away. So now we already, like in 2.0, we already do some amount of optimization there, and like kind of trying to load only what's going to be potentially needed. But in 2.1, most likely, like it's not merged yet, so I'm not sure we'll get there. But I think it's theoretically it seems very possible to really trim this down even more by essentially doing something that's kind of boils down to looking at all the versions that are loaded still at that point and saying, okay, if I have like 5 versions that all have exactly the same requirements, they are essentially the same versions. So if the policy is such that we take the highest version available, and all of these 5 versions have the same requirements and match all the requirements that are upon that package, then we can drop like 4 of the 5, and it shouldn't break anything. That's the theory. We'll see, but I'm pretty hopeful that this is workable, and I think if we get that in, that's gonna help again. Like it's gonna bring the memory down again quite a notch. Even despite the fact that we already, like, if you look at the couple benchmarks here, like from V1 to V2, we're seeing like more or less 80% reduction in memory usage and time as well, depending on what you do. So yeah, I think that's quite impressive, and if we can get that down another like 50% or so on top of that, then it's gonna be really amazing.
Okay, that's really impressive. I think a lot of people will be happy with this. We also have a question from Bart. Let's see if he will join us.
He said chat only, so I think not.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Were there behind the scenes things that you are really proud of optimizing out in the new version?
Well, I guess what I mentioned there is really a big one. Like that was just a lot of time invested in all of this. Mostly, like if you look at the internals, it was mostly like building this pool builder thing, which is it's just the name of the class is pool builder, which builds up a package pool from which the dependency solver can pick stuff from. And that was just a gigantic effort to really like extract all of the logic that was spread a little bit everywhere and centralize it all there so that we can have this one step that just like loads everything we need. The other big aspect, I guess, is the whole network. So I can just put the slide up so you can read a little bit on top of like what I may forget to mention. Like the network optimization was really quite a lot of work as well. But I think that paid off really immensely. So now we're doing like curl multi-requests. So we just fire off like a bunch of requests in parallel, which does help like a ton with loading the package metadata from Packagist. And in parallel to that, we also changed, like as I mentioned, a bit before, the metadata protocol between the two of them is optimized in, we did optimize it a little bit in the sense of compressing and deduplicating stuff in the JSON. And we also just optimized the overall format, because we used to have these gigantic listings. If you run, I don't know, can I just type something here? I'll just abuse this slide. If you run composer update on v1 with -vvv, you get the kind of full super verbal debug output. And there you will see that on v1 it's gonna spend usually a lot of time, if you haven't run an update recently, loading these packages.org, php/provider, blah blah blah. These were they were an okay idea initially, because essentially what it is long lists of all the packages and the hash for the metadata file. So if you load up all the provider files, you can then look up in your cache what's up to date and what's not. So once you have all the providers, it's great because you can do cache verification locally and invalidation and so on. And that works then super fast. The problem is now we're at I don't know, what is it, 250,000 amount of packages on packages.org just keeps growing and growing and growing. It's almost 300,000 at this point.
It's an amazing number.
And so if you only look at that, the growth is, it's not really stopping. It's just, it's not exponential kind of curve anymore. It's fairly flat, but it's still growing.
Also
so that means,
abandoned packages?
Sorry?
Does this graph also count the abandoned packages?
Yes, I think so. I think that counts everything. So yeah, there's probably some amount of abandoned stuff that could be removed. There's a ton of random test packages and stuff like that. It's just, there's tons of garbage there, right? Clearly this is not 300,000 packages, which are amazing and useful. But that's the issue, is that with this old system, you end up having now, it's these files grow to be a few megabytes of JSON of just listing package names and hashes of their file. The hashes are also fairly hard to gzip. It's just not super compressible because it's all unique hashes. So yeah, this just didn't scale anymore. And we've known this for years, but it's just replacing it was quite a big effort, and we kind of did all of this together in one go. So now in v2, what happens is it does not load these files anymore, and it just goes to foobar, and it just, for every package you require, it just sends off a request now. And it sends it with a if modified since header, so that if it's not modified, you get a very quick and short response. You get a 3 or 4 not modified. That takes a couple packets back and forth, I guess. If you already have an HTTP2 connection opened, and you're sending these in parallel. If you run it again, if you run this on v2, you'll see this stuff just fly by like crazy, and that means it's just much more efficient now. It's a bit of a trade-off. Let's say if you run two updates consequently in v1, you might have really the full cache still loaded locally, so it might be just a little bit faster as v2, but in most cases, it's just super slow.
Okay.
Okay.
Next question is from Marcus. He's asking, what were the most difficult and challenging decisions in your code and architecture, where you had to weigh one solution against another? And are you confident with all your decisions?
Those are always some very introspective questions where I have to like dig into my soul and see. I mean, the most challenging stuff I think I kind of mentioned already. I can't think of anything particular right now to mention on top of it. But am I confident with all the decisions? Probably not. I think, I mean, right now I kind of am, but that's just that's just like today me is pretty happy with this, but in a few years' time, maybe I'll be back here to tell you, look, we had this really dumb idea 5 years ago.
But I think everyone who's coding can relate to that.
Yeah, I think it's pretty standard, but yeah, no, let's say there's no area where I feel like we really made a gigantic mess or sloppy work out of, because we really did want to clean stuff up like massively, and so we did spend the time to really look into like every decision. We had super long discussions with Niels about really absurd details sometimes, but it's just we really tried to get like everything to be consistent and make sure we have tests for all the cases and so on. Well, at least when it comes to like the dependency resolution process, let's say, because there were like in V1 there was just tons of edge cases that kept biting us, which were just all things that we hadn't considered initially because we had no experience with this.
Okay.
So yeah.
I still see some people typing in chat. We are starting to run out of time. Oh, Marcus is saying it's quite satisfying to hear. So
I think it's it does work fine. I mean,
I don't have complaints myself, so it's not what you usually hear from the users, because if it's working fine, they're just using it.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'm very happy with everything Composer does.
I think maybe just looking at the slides quickly, like one thing I probably should mention is architecturally, like one big difference is that Composer V1 was kind of a mishmash of update and install together, while V2 really has a very strict distinction, at least internally. So, and there I just want to highlight really what an update and an install means. When you run an update, you're taking the Composer require. Sorry, can you still see the screen? Because I don't see it anymore.
No, I think.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. It's probably easier if you do see the graph here.
A bit more context.
Yeah. So if you look at the bottom here, like you take the require. Let's say if you run a require or remove command, and that will in turn update the Composer JSON. And then what update does is it reads the Composer JSON, it fetches the metadata as we discussed from packages, and it just resolves the dependencies, and it produces a composer.log file. And And then what composer install does is it takes this composer.log file, and that's all really. Like it just ignores everything else, takes the log file, it reads from there what it has to install. And that's why it's called install and not update. And it goes to fetch like code and stuff from GitHub or wherever, but that's not really interesting in terms of dependency management. That's just the process of installing and creating this vendor directory. So like in V1, it was just like when you ran an install or an update, like it was just a mishmash of these two things together. And at the end, you ended up with a new log file and a new vendor directory, which were fine, and like it's the same result, but it's just sometimes you ended up in weird edge cases. And so in V2, it's really, there is a clear distinction. And if you do run composer update, when it's done creating the log file, it will run internally a composer install as well, just for convenience, because usually you don't want to just update the log file, you also want to get the vendor dir updated. But it's like it is a two-step process, and you actually see it in the output. If you run V2, you now have kind of two blocks of output, which I guess we have a slide for here as well. So you see here like log file operations first, where you upgraded one package in the log file, but then the install operation is, maybe removing some package and like downgrading something which was just updated in the log file and installing some new dependencies and so on. Like it's just, these are really two separate things which have a different input as well, because the input of the install is the old vendor directory. And now the modifications you see are the modifications applied to the vendor directory. And on top, what you see are modifications applied to the log file. And before all of this was intermingled, and you had really no idea what you just did, like to the log file. If you had an out-of-date vendor directory, then you just saw like a lot of output, which might be a little bit misleading. Okay,
we have time for one last question. That's from Freek. He asks, how do you divide your work between you and Niels?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
So mostly, like if we look at composer, let's say code contribution, I think Niels mostly worked on the whole dependency resolution aspects, like the whole solver stuff and this, like all the more mathy side, and I kind of deal with most of everything else around it. That said, like as I mentioned, I'm really like working, like all of my time is on the open source stuff, while he also deals with private packages quite a lot. So I do have more time than he does, generally speaking. And yeah, and then the other big aspect really is that we just both know everything very much in depth, and like there's just many of these discussions where if we discuss with like random people reporting issues, they just don't have like a deep enough understanding sometimes to really help out. So it's just good to have another person to bounce off ideas, where you can just like you just know that they're on the same level of understanding, and so we do end up discussing stuff a lot together. Sorry.
Okay.
I hope that answered it.
Yes, so that's all we had time for now. I would like to thank you for this great session.
Well, thank you for having me. That was good. I think
thank you for all the work on Composer, because I'm sure everyone is very happy with it. And,
Yeah.
well,
If I may just like a last plug for, you know,
of course.
just do it. Like this is how you upgrade. If you haven't tried it yet, just give it a shot. And because really, like, if everything goes boom, like you don't lose anything. You just, you know, you should have your log file committed anyway. So just do a git checkout, composer.log. You're back on your old log file. You run composer self-update --1, and you're back on the old composer, and it's like nothing happened, right? So there's really like a very low risk threshold, I would say, to at least try it. If you can't update yet because of some plugins or something are holding you back, that's how it's fine. I realize that it's not possible yet for everyone, but I think it's possible for everyone to give it a shot at least.
If you love your CPU and your memory banks, you just
right. Yeah, I mean, it's gonna save you time. It's gonna make everything more reliable. Like there's really no reason to hold back, I would say.
Okay. Right.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Jordi, and I hope we will see more of you soon.
Yeah, maybe back in person at some point. That would be nice.
Yes, definitely. Thank you, and have a great evening.
Thanks. You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, that leaves us with only one more thing. Let's go back to the presentation. Because I probably have to so we're doing raffles this evening, and we're doing it in another way than most of our returning attendees are used to. We used to have this Wheel of Fortune with all the names on it, but we had so much RSVPs through Meetup this evening, we decided to try something different. Well, for this, I have bought a tablet to draw. And I was thinking of asking someone like Bob Ross to draw for us, but, well, due to COVID, it's kind of hard. So I asked my girlfriend if she could use the drawing tablet. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to hand her a card, and she is going to draw what's on the card. And you can enter your guesses in the chat. Please don't try to spam the chat. Each card has a prize attached to it, and we have 6 prizes to give away this evening. So I will loop in Sunny. I will move myself and just let her share the screen. So I need to stop sharing.
Zet je hem al wel klaar?
Yeah, I'll put it on the right screen. So there we are. And a brush. Okay, so I will switch places. Okay, so everyone who is in chat now is able to guess what Sunny is drawing. And the first one who guesses it right, yeah, we're doing MS Paint. This is going to be pretty exciting. The first one who makes the right guess will get the prize, which is on the card. You can claim your prize by sending an email to meetup@phpbenelux.eu. So let's see, we'll start with a prize, which is a frontline PHP course. And Sunny now gets the card, and so she can start drawing.
Oké. Dit is geweldig. Het werkt niet aan.
You can start. Oh,
Okay.
okay. I know what you want to do. People are thinking the Laravel logo, which is not right. Fun part of this is most of the things you can guess are programming terms, but Sunny is not a programmer. Yes, we have a winner. Jelmer. Let's see the card. Factory. Jelmer has the first prize, which is a frontline PHP course. So I will write the name on the card. Okay. The next prize, and I think Freek already mentioned it. It is a Oh Dear COVID-19 face mask. I will clear the board.
Yeah, doe maar. So as you can see, I'm as skilled in paint as I am skilled with the computer. Okay.
First, you need to select the pencil again. Okay, so Sunny will start drawing the second item. Oh, pushing the button.
Welke knop? Sorry.
Oh, and you still need to select the pencil. Okay, here we go.
Wacht. Sorry. Het gaat niet goed.
Okay, it's not a bike. Square is not what is on the card. House, no. Key, keyhole, lock. Security, Jasper. Jasper has guessed it. The card says security. So the mask is for Jasper. Okay. The next prize is going to be another frontline PHP course. This is going to be a tough one, so. Not an elephant. Human, user, no. Oh, what? We have a winner. We have a winner, and it's going so fast. I see Jos being the first one guessing it. Jos Elsgeest. Oh, I will show you the card. It was Composer. So Jos will win a voucher for a frontline PHP course. But we still have 3 prizes to go, so let's continue. The next prize is going to be an elephant. And I'm handing the card to Sunny now. People are trying to guess it with the prize, but it's something different. Okay, people. Oh, we got a winner. I see, I think Johan has it first. Let me double check. Yes. Johan got the first one. The driver. So 2 more prizes. Next one is another frontline PHP course. And I'm giving the card to Sunny right now. People are starting to guess the elephant again. Version, bubbles, family, crew, aliens, baby, parent, relation, children, child. Yes, that's the one. But Jos also won another prize. Jos, just a question. The answer is child. You're really good at this. Give it to the next one. Okay, that was my question. So the next one was Stefan. Thank you, Jos, for supporting Stefan with this awesome frontline PHP course. Okay, we have one more prize to give away, and it's going to be another elephant, so hold on tight. I am giving the card to Sunny now, so she can start drawing again. You don't want this drawing tablet. It's the cheapest one I could get at Media Market. Santa, inheritance, gloves, mother, hands, composer, worker, painter, composer, hammer, carpenter, teacher, writer, builder, chopper, architect, Bob Ross, Metzer, builder, mason, gardener. Trying to keep up with all your guesses. Engineer, programmer. Yes, we have a winner. David. David has guessed constructor. So I will write it down. And of course, I will show you the card. David wins an elephant. Okay, so then I will stop the screen sharing. So those are all the prizes we have to give away for today. And that also concludes the evening. Let me pull up the presentation once more. So again, I would like to thank all our sponsors, Mark Baker, Into IT, Spatie, Oh Dear. Of course, you for attending this session. We will have a new session in January. It's every second Thursday of the month, as long as the COVID restrictions are applicable. And we hope to be back in real life as soon as possible. So stay safe, stay healthy, and have a good evening. Thank you all for tuning in.